Greetings. I am Pastor Dan, Senior Pastor at Hillside Wesleyan Church. Welcome to our online sermon. And this week we're going to do something a little different. We're interrupting our series on Psalms, though it may tie into Psalms a little bit. But we have a guest speaker. And Bill Mills, one of the congregation members for many years here, him and his wife Beth are leaving our church because they are moving to Arizona, and we are very sad to see them go. But we do want to thank them for being very involved in our church, and so I'm letting Bill have the word and the stage today to say goodbye, but also to tell us about his journey of faith. So we'll welcome Bill Mills.
Good morning. As Pastor Dan said, this is Beth and my last Sunday here before our grand move to Arizona. So I thought I would spend a little time here letting you know a little about my journey in faith. You've heard me speak a lot up here for various things, but this time it's going to be a little more personal, a little bit more about me. So, and this talk is going to incorporate many different Psalms, since we're in the midst of the Psalms, and focus a lot more on the words of Jeremiah 29:11, which probably many of you know. And that is, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans for hope and a future." So, even though I wasn't in exile, I wasn't a slave, I'm not really from Israel, kind of thing, but Jeremiah, that verse kind of works for me and kind of speaks to me. So this will be really not a conversion testimony, but really more of a testimony of what my journey of faith has been like. Because I was probably around the age of 12 when I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. So I'm not going to wind the clock all the way back there, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what God can do for those who tend to be faithful to His calling. First, a disclaimer, I haven't always been faithful to His calling. There's times that I've had a little bit of selective hearing, didn't always hear exactly what God was saying, or I heard it, just didn't want to listen to it. But if He can do what I'm going to talk to you about in somebody with poor hearing, imagine what He can do for us when we're being faithful to His calling, when we're paying attention, we're listening to that still small voice, when we are all sold out, or, as Dan would say, a fanatic for God. So, okay, I'm going to roll the clock back a little bit. Since Dan's time machine is kind of on the fritz, I'm just going to have you imagine back long ago in a faraway place called Houghton College, where I wound up going to college to be a biology major. And for Mills, trivia question number 1, what was I going to be when I went to Houghton? A veterinarian. A little different path, but I was going to go to veterinary school. So I was going to be a biology major at Houghton. Well, it just so happened at that time I was dating the prettiest girl in Bridgeton High School band. And what instrument did she play? Correct, flute. Beth was a flutist there. And she was very thrilled with my career choice because, as you know, ever since she was a little girl, she's been messing with the animals and still does that to this day. So she was all excited about that. Her mom, of course, wanted a Methodist preacher, so this is as close as she would probably ever get to that. So anyway, I was in Houghton, chugging right along, was going to do this, when a friend of mine talked me into joining the ambulance corps. And that's where God said, I know the plans I have for you. Maybe they weren't quite the plans I had for me. So that's when I switched over and decided to become a pre-med major. I don't think Beth has quite forgiven me yet for that, but you can ask her about that. So anyway, my academic career at Houghton wasn't quite as spectacular as the pre-med advisor thought it should be. So he said these inspiring words to me: barring a miracle, there's no way you're getting into medical school. Talk about a way to crush the spirit of a college kid. Psalms 143:3, "For the enemy has pursued my soul. He has crushed my life to the ground. He has made me dwell in dark places like those long dead. But being this somewhat tenacious or stubborn, but yet optimistic young man, I decided I was just going to go for it. And when everybody around me was getting their med school interviews, I said, mine will come. And he did. One day I got one from Hahnemann in Philadelphia. The very next day I got one from New Jersey. The very next day I got nothing. Nothing else for the rest. But there were two. Two's enough, right? I only needed one acceptance. So I went to the first interview and it went okay. And then I went to the second one. And I was waiting and it was running a little past time and I kind of wondered and somebody came down and said, well, the person who was going to interview you died last week. So we had to get a substitute. All of a sudden I'm not feeling so good. And they said, Dr. Doom will interview you. I said, excuse me? Dr. Doom was a pathologist. Now, pathologists are folks who look at slides and do things in the lab, kind of lab rat style, and have kind of the personalities of accountants. And so I went to interview with Dr. Doom, and what she do? She starts quizzing me on the Krebs cycle and other biochemistry things, and that sinking feeling went deeper and deeper. So then it happened. The other school sent me a letter, and I was waitlisted. So it's summertime now, and things aren't looking so good. You know, Dr. Doom wasn't impressed with me, so I wasn't going to that school. And the other school had put me on the wait list. So I said, well, I guess I'm going to have kind of a year to figure out what's what. So I am working nights at the local hospital as an orderly. Well, for those of you who don't know what an orderly is, that really is the politically incorrect term for a person self-identifying as a male nursing assistant. So I was working nights doing that. I had scheduled a review course for my MCATs, the Medical College Admission Test, to try to boost those scores. I bought the marimba that I've played here, and I bought an engagement ring for Beth. So I figured, what the hey? I'm not going to use that money for tuition in the fall. I mean, it's July, and so I was awakened one morning after a long night of working, and it was my mother knocking on the door, handing me a letter from Hahnemann saying, guess what? You've been accepted to medical school. See you in August. The excitement was tempered a little bit by the fact that I kind of spent all my money, and Beth wanted to get married, which we wound up doing actually after my first year of medical school, not after the 4 that my mother thought was a good idea. So off to medical school I went. But before I did that, just to make my mother proud, I remembered my manners and sent a note to my pre-med medical director at Houghton. And I sent him just a copy of my acceptance letter with the kind words, here's your miracle, written on it. So my mother was proud of my manners. Well, actually, she wasn't quite so proud. So I'm going to fast forward through medical school and family medicine residency, because most of them are pretty much a blur anyway. So we had Joshua by then, he's 3. So him and Beth and I are working on establishing a practice in Center, New Jersey. So I set up things and said, going to be a doc, going to be a family doc, going to be in this place. God, you did it. You did it. Despite what the world had planned for me, you had different plans. So things are stable, they've settled down. You might say mundane, you'll be wrong, but you might say mundane, and then the birth of Jesse, Sean, and Laura, otherwise known as Baby C, sitting in the back. So Beth had gone into early labor with these because our soon-to-become martial artist apparently was practicing her kicks. That was Laura's sister, and tore some of the placenta away from the uterus. So Beth started to bleed. That caused a little bit of irritation, and the premature labor began, and it wouldn't stop. So despite what the docs could do. So we took a little quick ambulance trip over to Philadelphia, had an emergency C-section, and Beth continued to hemorrhage. Phone rings in the living room. It's my father going, "Hey, how are the kids?" And I say, I don't know. Beth's bleeding. Bad. Real bad. Dead silence on the other end of the phone, followed by a, "I'll be up." You want to talk about a dark time. Psalms 88:6. You have set me in the pit below, in dark places, in the depths. God, what are you doing? I just started my family practice. I now have 4 kids, and my wife's dying. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans for a hope and future. So 4 units of blood, 22 liters of fluid later, and Beth is sitting up worrying about getting payroll out for the office staff. Sorry, God. Guess I shouldn't have doubted. So let's fast forward a little bit more. We have 4 kids in school. The practice has grown. It's now a 4-position group. Everything is perfect, except inside of me. I'm unsettled. I just don't feel I'm doing what I should be doing. Wait, God, you brought me to this point pretty miraculously. How can I not be happy? I get it. You're not done yet. There's a reason you're sending me to do all these courses while working and getting my master's in medical management. There's more that I'm supposed to be doing. But how am I supposed to move? I got 3 high school seniors. Take them out of school, it's going to be ugly. And then, miraculously, a job opens up less than an hour away down near the Jersey Shore. So I said, wow, I can do that. We don't have to move. The kids can graduate. Life is good. So I leave practice. I head off to full-time administrative work. Now I know for sure that God had a plan, and I'm doing it, and it's going to be great. Yeah. A couple months in, CEO and I just aren't really on the same page. Things aren't doing so good, so this perfect job isn't quite so much so. So I negotiate my exit. That's a euphemism for being fired. But be that as it may, you know, the unkindest cut came when she looked me in the eye and said, "Bill, you're no good at this. Go back to being a doctor." Yeah. Dark one more time. God, what is wrong with you? You brought me here, you did all this stuff, and now I'm fired? Not even a year, 9 months. I'm out of here, what's wrong with you? Or what's wrong with me? So you know what God did to answer my lament? He didn't just smack me around, he told me he knows the plans. Trust him. And wait. So I had a 6-month severance that was going to end in August. And it's July, and I said, well, God, you've changed my life. You've put me in different paths. You've set things the right way. And you've done this with many miracles. I hope I'm not being too pushy here, but I need another one, and I really need it now. And there was an opening for Vice President of Medical Affairs at Olean General Hospital. And I could say Olean right. So I said, I got a leg up on this interview. You know, all the folks around me going, Olean, I'll be good. And dang, what a beautiful part of the country. Then Beth speaks up and says, excuse me, but there's no way we're moving to Houghton, to Olean, because when she had been to visit me at Houghton, she said, it may not be the end of the world, but you can see it from there. If we kept going west on 17, we'd probably go. So she wanted no parts of it. So of course, what happens is they invite me up for an interview, and she comes up, bound and determined to hate the place, and she can't. She said, I tried so hard, but I can't. They invite me back up and hire me. So I'm up here, and once again, things are perfect, except maybe that 8-month of winter thing and some of that no sun, but we're going to fix that in a few weeks. But anyway, find a great church with a somewhat quirky pastor who'd been an engineer before God kind of changed his plans. He was almost as quirky as I was, so you know what? We became pretty good friends. We bonded quite well. It's kind of nice to have a male I could talk to, share with, and vice versa. And then, the rest of the story. Rick Long dies from cancer. So the paradise up here wasn't all there, but God still was in charge. But then I started developing this awful pain in my neck, and no joke here. So I had this, I have a sore left arm, and I lose strength in the left arm, and after the conservative approach fails, the neurosurgeon says, well, I think you might need surgery soon. I said, when soon? He said, by the end of the month. I said, excuse me? But this time I don't really care, because you know what? God's done all these things, so why would I worry? So when he said we're going to do an anterior cervical discectomy infusion C4 to 7, or put another way, they're going to screw this titanium plate in my neck, stuff some cadaver bone in, where the disc used to be, it was no big deal. It says God's got it, and he did, and I recovered from that pretty quickly. So it was like, okay, life's good again, but being the really good doctor that I am, and the really good, or not quite so good patient that I am, I went for my annual physical, and I was only probably, 1, 2, 3 years late for it or something like that. But anyway, the doctor decides, of course, to order a whole bunch of unnecessary tests. But trying to be the good patient, I decided to go get them. Well, most of them anyway. So one of the tests was an ultrasound of the aorta. He wanted to look, make sure I didn't have an aneurysm down there. He said, dude, cholesterol's okay, I don't have any of that stuff, but you want it, I'll do it. So I said to the tech, by the way, while you're looking, can you look at my right kidney? I have a cyst there and a couple stones, and I'm supposed to look at that every now and again. Well, probably every year, but every now and again was close enough. She says, sure, because the doctor made a mistake. He checked the box for the ultrasound of the whole abdomen, just not the aorta, so she had to do it anyway. So, for you literary-minded folk, here comes the foreshadowing. I get the test done on the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. I seem to have this thing with black and dark going on. So I finish the test that day, wander into the radiologist's office, sit down, wait for her so we can look at the films, because Rank does have a couple privileges. So she pulls them up and looks and says, well, your cysts are about the same, the stones are the same place where they were, but you have this 4-centimeter oncocytoma on the left. I said, and that's never having heard of that. And she said to me, oh, it's a benign lesion. Look, it's got all these benign characteristics, no problem. So I said, okay, well, it's grown since my last time, because I wasn't even there then. So it's going to keep growing, so I probably need to get it out. And if I go home and tell Beth I've got this 4-centimeter mass hanging out my kidney, she's going to be freaking out. So I said, who takes out half kidneys? Because it was in the top part, and it's a tougher procedure, but I said, why get rid of a half a kidney that's really good with this benign lesion up top? So I looked through, and lo and behold, there's a particular guy up at Roswell that I actually know from our time working with them at Olean for the affiliation. So I call Roswell and tell him who I want to see, and they said, oh, well, he doesn't work in the clinic all that often. It'll be several months. Why don't you send up your stuff? We'll look at it and get back to you. I go, How do you think Beth's going to react to that one? Probably not so well. So I pull out my cell phone and do a little text thing. It says, let's see what kind of action we can get on Good Friday. And lo and behold, 15 minutes later, I get a call from Roswell asking me if an appointment on Wednesday morning will be good. So I said, ooh, miracle number, kind of lost track of that. So we go up to Roswell, and of course the doctor agrees it's benign and says we can watch it for 6 months and just repeat a CAT scan. So I look over at Beth, and I look at him. I look back at Beth. I look at him and said, that's fine if Beth can live with you for the next 6 months, because she's going to worry every day till that puppy's out of there. So he says, okay, let me see what we have on the schedule. And he says, how about 3 weeks from now? And I kind of like almost fell off my chair. And that was about a week before Christmas, and we were already scheduled to go out to Arizona. So we said, well, why don't we put it off until the first of the year, because Beth will buy that. She'll know there's an end point and life will be good. So I go up to have the surgery, and we're going in, and I'm just kind of hanging out doing my thing, because, quite frankly, those things don't bother me, probably because my pre-med guy was right. I'm just not that bright, apparently. So I go in there and wake up, and Josh is there, my eldest, because he's there to be with Beth. Why I had the surgery, and I asked how it went, and Beth said it went okay, but he had to take the whole kidney. I go, that's funny. I distinctly remember in the preoperative timeout where they make sure you have the right person and go and operate on the right side and stuff, and they said to me, what are you having today? And I said, a left partial nephrectomy. So I knew they must have understood me. But apparently, even in the operating room when I'm horizontal, my sense of humor still stays a little bit off. I did have a doc once tell me that my sense of humor was sedation resistant. I'm not sure I know what that means, but anyway. So I asked Beth, so they took the whole kidney, why? And she said, well, the doc said it didn't look good. I speak doctor, I know what that means. That means it's not benign. It's malignant, and it's cancer. So I said, thanks, God. No, I knew it wasn't God's fault by any stretch of the imagination. And I wasn't worried when Beth said that. Because you know what? I went in with cancer, and I left surgery without cancer. Way to go, God. You got this. I'm beginning to get it. It was a benign lesion. That wasn't. I had tests that I shouldn't have had, but did. It was benign. No, it wasn't. And all this happened in 6 weeks instead of the 6 months. Maybe I should trust a little bit more. So, once again, life is back to perfect. Everything's good, except, no, it's not. The CEO who hired me was about to retire, and the guy who was going to take over, I just, didn't think he was going to be able to do it. So I started selectively looking for a job. And get some interviews, but no offers, so I'm a little surprised, but I'm getting a little disappointed again, and I'm thinking in my head, geesh, aren't you any good? He said, wait, Satan, stop it. Back to his tricks, going there, but God's in charge, right? God's got the plan. Then it happens. COVID! It's like, ugh. So I'm not going to go through COVID, but to say, God kept me in Olean to help the hospital and community prepare and get through COVID. And as a bonus, the CEO was doing pretty good. Till we start coming out of COVID, and it's not looking so good. My fears were kind of turning into reality. He really wasn't doing well. And quite frankly, I'm not going to work for someone who puts patients and the organization in harm's way. So I started looking for an opportunity to go, and when the opportunity came up this time, I took it. I still tell people to this day, I can't tell you if I was fired or I quit. When people ask that question, I say yes, because this time I really did negotiate my way out. So I'm gone, and 2 months later, the CEO was fired and escorted from the building. So, God knew the plans he had for me. So I'm still looking for that job, not much success. Beginning to wonder, do you think maybe my beard color is, a problem here? Maybe it's Grecian formula time? So, been away for 14 years, worked 7 days a week during COVID, saw miracle upon miracle, but God said, you're done. It's no longer your time, no longer your place. I don't want you to return. So I'm saying, well, I'm okay with that, but what? Then another dark day. February 28th. Okay, it's supposed to be dark in February, but I get a phone call, or an email actually, from a doc who says, I saw your CV online and I think you'd be a perfect fit for us. It was kind of like, what's the catch? But it was like, nope, God, maybe that's what it is. But the short version of the story is, she said, did you ever consider working for Indian Health? And I said, no, never considered it, never didn't consider it, was never really an option. So she says, why don't you come out and take a look? So, since it's pretty obvious that both myself and Beth can be a little dense sometime, God decided to make it a little more clear where we're supposed to go. Arizona really was never on our hit parade. Living in the desert was never what we had planned. But I guess Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh. I guess maybe the Israelites didn't want to wander around for 40 years. And the fact that Bill and Beth didn't really want to go live in a desert is probably ranked right up there. Well, no, it doesn't rank with them, but it wasn't what we thought we'd want to do. So this time God decides to make it really clear. First, he says, you're going to be near your eldest daughter. She's the one you guys have been praying for, who's had the traumatic brain injury, has a connective tissue problem that causes her trouble raising the 4 kids. So we'll be close there. The Tohono O'odham Nation healthcare really does need someone with the administrative skills that I've been taught and used. And very interesting, this Native American population has no addiction medicine services. And as many of you know, that's been a passion of mine, hired not all that long ago by Mike Putzman to help CARES as they were merging into Casa Trinity. And it's always been a bit of a passion, and they don't have anything out there. But, yo, God! See, I did time in Philadelphia. Yo, God! Don't you know we've spent our entire lives on the East Coast where there's trees and grass? We have family here. We have 2 delightful granddaughters. We have friends. We have a church family. And you know what? It's really, really hot out there. But I know the plans I have for you. So we're going. Ecclesiastes 3:1. For everything there is an appointed time, a time for every matter under heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:6. A time to seek and a time to lose, a time to throw away, a time to keep. Romans 8:28, which many of you know, and we know that all things work together for the good, for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. So my point today, the point of this testimony is not, don't make plans, God will change them, but go for it. Full speed ahead. Be all in where you are today, doing what you do today. But remember, when God comes knocking and tells you what to do next, you better do it. Jonah's a good example of what happens when you don't. If you think that we're not anxious, a little worried, scared to death, mourning the loss of everything that we've known and been around and come to love over the last 15 years, you're pretty much wrong. We're all those things and a whole lot more. But God gave us the human emotions, but God also wants us to trust him despite those emotions. Because he knows the plans he has for us. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Psalm 18:28, for you light my lamp. Yahweh, my God, lights up my darkness. We love you all. We're going to miss all of you, yet we're extremely excited by the new opportunities and adventures God has in store for us and the difference we'll be making in the lives of people we haven't even met yet. So it's our prayer that God continues to bless you in this church now and forevermore. And as Psalms 155:6 says, praise him upon the loud cymbals. Praise him upon the high-sounding cymbals. Let everything that hath breath praise the Lord. Praise ye the Lord. Shalom.